The following episode of the Carnival of Randomness is sponsored by an important message to you, the people, from Upsitnik & Associates. Every day there are forces that are taking from you, stealing from you. Your money, your time, your freedom. Immense faceless corporations, banks, credit card companies, insurance providers, government agencies, this list goes on and on. When you are under attack and facing crisis, turn to us, Upsitnik & Associates, attorneys for you, the people. When every day becomes a battle, we can advise and assist. We have been advocates for 40 years. Email us through upsitnikslaw.com or call us at 1-866-391-3299 or reach out to us through Upsitnik & Associates on Facebook for a prompt, no obligation communication and consultation. Don't be pushed around. Hello, everybody. With Halloween just around the corner, it's time for all things spooky scary. So we're back. Rob's here. We've got guests. Rob, what do we got today?
I was just thinking you stole what I was going to say.
Oh,
because I was going to say Halloween's just around the corner. The leaves are falling. It's officially okay to watch horror films as if it isn't all the rest of the year. And once again, right on the horizon is Hamlin Scream Fest. This year it's October 5th.
October 5th.
Yes, and we have, again, some guests here. Tom's around somewhere, but he's not here for now. He must have become a ghost. But we have Curt Markham and we have Patty Jo here. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
And if you'd like to say something about yourself.
Yeah, tell us a little about you.
Well, I've lived in Hamlin for 25 years and have seen the Scream Fest start out from the very beginning when it wasn't even called Scream Fest. It was called School of Screams, actually. And I've seen it morph and change and into all different kinds of things. So,
my name's Curt Markham. I've been a volunteer on Scream Fest for a few years now as a videographer and performer.
And how long actually has Scream Fest been going on now? Because we got involved in this the last few years, but...
this will be the 13th year.
Oh,
yeah, I just realized that.
Oh, great. And we're all going to die.
Yeah.
Scream Fest for 2 years, and the School of Scream ran for 10 years. So, and the School of Scream started 13 years ago as a one-day event. The local fire department used to have a haunted hayride. And it was fantastic. And the kids loved it. The teenagers loved it. The adults loved it. And, of course, like anything, it's difficult after a while to get volunteers and people, there to help out.
We have to say the one story we have to always bring up with haunted hayrides, and this is not a great one, but a friend of ours.
Oh, this one?
Yes, this one. His brother, was it?
Yeah, it was his brother. He was one of the performers, and I think what happened was, from what I understand, is he fell down.
He was playing a Phantom. He came out trying to scare you. Like
slipped, and I guess the tractor ran over his leg and broke his leg, and he's laying there in pain, but everybody thought it was part of the show, so they didn't really come to help him immediately. Mm-hmm. They did help him eventually, but that's the one thing. I remember I was at one. The guy tried to pull me off the wagon, and if you've never seen me, I'm a large man, and he gave up halfway through, and I just told him, "It's okay, fella."
But I understand you've done the haunted house for this.
Yes, yeah. So I don't think anything that bad happened at the Hamlin haunted hayride, but they of course stopped doing it. And then a couple years later, one of the teens in the community came to me. I was the recreation director at the time for Hamlin, and he said, "Hey, we should do something. I know we can't do a haunted hayride, but maybe we could do a haunted hallway." So I never really had a big Halloween background. I mean, I decorated like any other normal person would.
Well, right, yeah.
But so we tried it, and I fell in love with it from the very first start.
How was in your area where you were growing up for Halloween? How was it? Because I've noticed now, unfortunately, like where I am, we don't really even get many kids anymore. And I remember when I was a child, it seemed like everybody was out.
Yeah, so well, I was raised on a farm, so I had to get transported into a village. I was raised in Holly, actually with Tom, for a little while. He lived there too. But we used to drive into the village to go trick-or-treating, and everybody went. That was in the 70s.
Kurt, was it the same for you?
I'd actually found one I'd like to go is, if you have a Saber Frog shirt.
No, I do not. Saber Frog is the name of a low-budget road movie comedy that I made about a decade ago.
How did you get into this? Were you like, when you were younger, did you just sort of see movies and go, wow, I could do this? Is it fun? Or is it...
Yes, when I was a kid, that was kind of the golden age of making of specials on TV, where they would show you how the effects were done and stuff like that. And so that was part of what made me really interested in filmmaking. And one of my first projects was I actually made a stop motion fantasy film on Super 8 film, one frame at a time. It took me 2 years to shoot it in my early teens.
I'm surprised it took that short a time.
You ever see, too, one of the ones I used to watch, there was a show on Nickelodeon with Leonard Nimoy. He used to,
Lights, Camera, Action,
remember
yes.
this? And there's one which I always remember, the one he did where it shows the effect of music, because it shows him sort of listening and his wife or somebody's on the phone, and it's just he's talking about going shopping, but he shows it where he's sitting there, then you hear dramatic music, and all of a sudden you think it's something different.
I'm not familiar with that one. But the stop motion film that I made, it's about an hour long. It's almost a feature. It's called The Search for Silver Spear, and it's gotten into a couple of festivals, and it's going to have a 30th anniversary screening next week at RockCon at the Main Street Armory. Oh. So that's Saturday at 12:30, Saturday the 14th. Yep.
Yeah. So, I know Friday the 13th is next week, so I probably know the dates.
Yep, so maybe it'll be a little bit luckier.
The patience, because I always thought about, like, you have to go back all the way, like, to King Kong area I was in. It's amazing how anybody has the patience. You have camera, touch, camera. And then you think the phone rings or something happens. And, like, you ruined my whole day.
Yeah, it's definitely... It definitely requires a lot of time and a lot of patience, and obviously there's many different ways to do animation. Now with computers, you can create something and set the keyframes, and the computer will animate the in between parts, and it allows you to do certain ambitious effects. But also there's still a fondness for for doing it by hand and just the character that creates.
I was just going to say, in this day and age, you got CGI everywhere. But there's something to be said for somebody that can still do really good practical effects. Because it was The Lion King, the redo, and they had the CGI lion. And, CGI is supposed to be better than real life, right? They put it next to, they did a split screen of the CGI lion against a lion. It was night and day. It's like the CGI lion wasn't even remotely close to moving how a real lion would move. They couldn't get the hair right. It's like, come on, it's 2019. Why can't you do it if supposedly you're able to do it?
Well, if you want to talk about practical effects, actually Rochester has some connection to horror effects and horror filmmaking in general. The Chiodo brothers. Are you familiar with them?
Name sounds familiar. Rob, do you know them?
Probably, but go on. It's early.
They were one of the. I believe they were one of the very first graduates of the RIT film program, and they've gone on to work on. I'm drawing a blank, unfortunately, on some of the films they've worked on. If Tom was here, they could fill me in.
Yeah,
he could fill me in. But also currently, John Vincent and Mike Boas are two local filmmakers who've worked on several films. Actually, they both did effects for a recent film called Widow's Point, which was made by Greg Lamberson, who's a very very well-known horror filmmaker based in the Buffalo area.
I was going to say, I've heard that name before.
Yeah, Widow's Point stars Craig Schaefer from
Lost
Nightbreed. Yeah. And actually, if you want to see that film and see just a little bit of their work, that's going to be showing. That is going to be showing on Friday the 13th, September, at the Fredonia Opera House at 7:30 p.m. So, if you're out that way, check out Widow's Point and see what our friends in Buffalo are up to.
And you mentioned Buffalo, and you said the industry is pretty good for horror and everything there for films there.
There's a lot of horror activity out there.
I think we know that driving around there.
Oh,
don't
God.
we? Yeah. We know all of Buffalo from driving around there pretty much. So,
well, there's quite a few noteworthy filmmakers and productions that I can talk about out there. I mean, Greg Lamerson I just mentioned. He also runs the Buffalo Dreams Fantastic Film Festival, which just ran last month in August. And I had a couple of short films of my own in that festival this year. They also showed The Search for Silver Spear a few years ago, and he also Greg Lamerson also made Johnny Gruesome a couple years ago, which was based on one of his novels. Greg's a horror novelist as well as a filmmaker.
Oh, he's got his hand in everything.
Oh, absolutely. And a couple other noteworthy projects I can mention. Sam Qualiano, I don't know if you know that name. He's been making several films since he was a kid. His most recent, Snow Shark, I think, is his most famous film.
oh, I know it.
Okay. Yep.
No, there was Santa Shark, the one with the Santa hat.
Oh
on
no,
the
this is Snow Shark that he made, and his most recent film also has a shark theme, Post-Apocalyptic Commando Shark, which is a great fun horror comedy. The cast is full of who's who of familiar faces from Buffalo horror movies. I have a small non-speaking part as a Russian soldier in that movie. Another one I should mention is Attack of the Killer Shrews. That's a good one you should check out. That was made by a Niagara Falls filmmaker, Ken Constantino. That film was actually mentioned on the cover of Fangoria, if I'm not mistaken. It was shown at the drive-in theater, I believe the Transit drive-in theater.
Transit Road.
Yeah,
Good old
Transit Road,
Road.
Yeah, so that was fun. And I didn't work on that one, but I knew a lot of people involved in that movie. And another Buffalo-based filmmaker, Adam Steigert, his newest film is called Fang, which is being shown in festivals. It's got a screening coming up in the Niagara Falls Film Festival, I believe, coming up. And the lead actress in that is Rochester-based actress Melody Rohrig, or Rohrig. I'm actually not... I forget how to pronounce her last name, but anyway, sorry, Melody, I apologize for messing up your name, but your film Fang, that's going to be showing. And if you guys are interested in seeing horror films in Buffalo, I know there's a couple things coming up. The Upstate New York Horror Film Festival, that's coming up the weekend of October 11th and 12th and 13th, I think. That's going to be at the cinema. And there's a new film festival coming out, the Anomaly Rochester Genre Festival. That's a little farther out. That's November 8th to 10th, and that's also going to be at the cinema.
I have fond memories of the drive-in at Earl Lakeshore Drive-In. I remember seeing Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead there, and we get a kick out of it because when we went down Transvert, we saw that drive-in, and what was really neat about it, there was a line was out the door
Oh, God.
for the cars.
Yeah, it was...
I just thought it was cool.
We were coming back from doing work out in Lockport, and we came down Transit Road, and the line to get into the drive-in was probably a mile or so long of just straight cars waiting to get in. So, you know what? Good.
Because, see, the problem with ours, if you're not familiar with the Lakeshore one, is it's all right, but it was built by a swamp. So if you had the windows open, the mosquitoes would hit to the horror.
Jesus.
Which is ironic because they had Food of the Gods there one time. You were the Food of the Gods. But, Pat, I understand you've done the haunted houses for the festival. No, the not-so-haunted houses it's turned out to.
Yep. Yeah.
And how did you get into those? Was it something you've done like as a child? Did you get into them, or just something you picked up now?
No, like I said, I wasn't really a big Halloween person until we started doing this haunted house thing, and then it grew inside of me. And
Do you know what are the elements of a good haunted house?
Well, you gotta have the unknown. What you don't know what's coming around the corner, like a suspense kind of part in your haunt. Of course, sound, different kinds of sounds. Have to have some new element, something different every year, and I think we accomplished doing something different. We had each year it was a different path, a different building added to the haunt, so it was always changing, so you never knew what to expect.
A little bit like a magician's trick where you're trying to say, hey, look over here, then something gets you on the
I
side.
was going to say, that harkens back, with the horror movie talk, to the old 50s and 60s psychological horror movies, where you didn't need to see somebody getting their head cut off with a spoon. because it was the atmosphere. You know, and the directors, good directors would have you focus on one thing and have that be completely meaningless, while something else came and just ate you from behind.
And there was some good ballyhoo. There was one at Seabreeze years ago, and I was the connoisseur of haunted houses of the different amusement parks. And what happened, though, before you went in, the person doing the ride started talking to somebody going, you know, you don't want to tell them, but did they ever catch that guy that escaped from the asylum?
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
he's hiding in there. And then you're going in there, oh, great. And then they had a weird thing in there where you almost went through a circular tunnel of color, which is just different, but you're just thinking, looking around, going, oh, great, it's the fun house.
Well, one of the coolest features of Scream Fest, and this was recently introduced, is the unhaunted house, where instead of it being a haunted house where they're trying to scare you, it's actually the opposite, where it shows you how the different effects are created. They show you, you know, here's how this noise is being made. Here's
now
what's
that's
making
cool.
this jump
That's
out.
different.
Yeah, the big one the kids loved. Well, even the adults.
School bus, right?
Well, it was the chainsaw. You know, the classic chainsaw at every haunt. This time, you know, the kids got to run the chainsaw. They saw that there wasn't a chain on there. You know, they got to rev the engine, so they really enjoyed that part. Another part was, you know, the ghost on the pulley system. So they got to pull the ropes.
I've been a fan of that ever since, I think anybody my age grew up reading comic books, had to get his Johnson Smith Company catalog, and they would have the ghost with the pulley, and I would rig it outside.
Oh, yeah. But that was back in the day when you can have fun like that and not offend anybody. But I like that. But and people would say, oh, every haunted house has a chainsaw. Well, it's a universal sound. You hear that sound, you know exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. So, and it's terrifying. Especially if you're somewhere, it's dark, you're in an unfamiliar place, and you hear a chainsaw fire up. It's nerve-wracking.
It's sort of like the things with like the grapes or the eyeballs or things or stuff like that.
Oh, the old,
you know, they're
put your
not.
hand in the bowl of intestines. Ooh. I'm sorry. It's cheesy, but, you know, that was the beginnings of it, I think.
I was going to go, too, Curt, like in terms of doing, did you have some influences in terms of horror that really got you into it, that you saw these movies and wow, it's going, I really want to do this kind of stuff, like for...
Well, one of the big influences. I wasn't specifically interested in horror as a kid. I was more into sci-fi and fantasy generally. But one thing that was very inspiring to me as a kid was Night of the Living Dead. Of course, the Rochester Library had the making of book, which was, I believe, written by John Russo, the producer. And I remember two interesting things I learned from that book about the making of the production. One, there's a famous scene near the beginning where the lead female character, Barbara, is trying to get away from the zombie, and she actually accidentally scrapes her car against a tree and crashes the car. And apparently the car actually had a dent in it, so they wrote it into the script. And also the farmhouse that it takes place in, that was a farmhouse that was going to be torn down, so they could do
I think they
whatever
did
they wanted
too.
to trash
I would think it might be a horror historical, but I guess they tore it down because it would be too dangerous.
It was condemned before filming. It was basically on the verge of collapse, so they had to fix it up to the point where they could use it. Yeah, because it was outside of north of Pittsburgh in Zelienople. I mean, you're talking not a whole lot of anything there if you've ever been there. But yeah, it was just this dilapidated farmhouse that they had to fix up because the owner said, you can have this, but you have to tear it down. And they're like, oh, we'll tear it down. Yeah. And
I don't know if that's the same book. I read one that had the script for Night of Anubis in the back, which was the original.
That was the original working title.
Yeah, and it had and there was a lot different. The lead was like this sort of like farm boy, like type person, and it was just about the same, but it was neat having the original script in it because they never really explained what did the zombie thing. They hinted at satellite.
They speculated that it was the satellite, but nobody ever said for sure where it came from.
Yeah,
watch it.
Yeah, this book didn't have a script in it, as I recall. But another fun fact I remember from that book is because the film was shot in black and white, they could be shooting the film off and on all year, and it didn't matter. You didn't see the leaves changing color. So it meant that they could I don't remember how long it took to shoot the movie, but they could shoot regardless of the season.
I never
because
even
it was
thought
black
of
and
that.
And
white.
the
Yeah,
other
that's
one, too,
absolutely
we have to
true.
bring up, because Romero, we have to go on a segue a little bit about Romero. I tell him what the food was, the meat, the stuff.
no,
people were barfing.
The
weren't
story
they?
was when the zombies were eating the victims, it was actually ham, like a roast ham, and because it was black and white, the blood was chocolate syrup. So it was ham covered in chocolate syrup. And it was so vile, it was making people sick, so they said, why even bother putting makeup on them, because they're going to get sick anyway. It's like, but, ingenuity, man. I mean, and that was pretty much the birth of the zombies, the first real cult classic, I would say. He shot that thing on a shoestring.
But to go back to, like, what you do, Curt, and just the haunted house and everything, I think part of the things as a child, too, for this is that we talk about CGI and everything, but just doing the effects, doing all this, finding a way to do it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun doing, and it's creative. I had one time, I did a haunted house in the basement. We filled the shark with baby powder and dumped it on people. We didn't have, like, CGI or anything.
No, I don't even want to know.
Well, there's still a lot of low budget ingenuity. I mean, I mentioned Attack of the Killer Shrews earlier. That's a sequel to So Bad It's Good 50s movie.
The Killer Shrews with
Where-
the dog with the
Yeah.
zippers
Yeah.
in the back.
And-
Yeah, with the dogs with the hair glued onto
Yeah,
them.
and Attack of the Killer Shrews very much pays homage to that. So they have these very obvious puppets, or they just put a blanket on a dog and it's chasing somebody. It's a lot of fun. You should definitely check that one out. There's another Western New York filmmaker, Amir Scalanja, who is just always making low budget films. Like a friend of mine put it as, he makes movies more often than I change my sheets. And I've been an extra in a couple of his movies. He's got a new one out that he's working on called Till Death Do We Rot. And I'm looking forward to seeing that when it comes out.
There's also, and I always get the name mixed up because I say it all the time. And is it Frank Lalogia, Woman in White?
The Lady in White.
Lady in
yes.
White.
Yep.
And I remember saying the other one, the one about the zombies came back, and I forget the name now, which I know. But I remember saying Abbott's Custard and everything.
Yeah.
And it's just cool. It's like, hey, there's Dick Burt, this old newsman we had. Wow, I know this scene. Oh no, we're haunted. Because that was filmed in Lions. The other one, The Woman in White, I think.
Yes.
Lady in White, Slugs, fantastic movie. If you've never seen it, do it, because it's a thing. The lettuce scene, that just kind of made me,
But did
hurt
you
a
have,
little
like,
bit.
if you could have a dream thing where, okay, you can work with some horror person or somebody, would you have one?
That's a good question. It's like so many of my friends are in the Buffalo horror scene. It might just be a matter of teaming up with one of them. Like, but I've been in one of Sam's movies. I've been in a couple of Emer's movies. Ken said that he'd try to put me in one of his movies next time. So, that probably those guys are my inspiration these days.
I like Rob Zombie's stuff. I have to admit that. I just do. He's got some. He knows his stuff.
well, because he's a throwback to the 60s
Yeah.
slasher movies.
But actually, Patty, this is the Scream Fest. There's more to this than because there's a lot of activities for people there.
There is.
And I remember the pumpkin chucking.
Yeah, but I don't think they were able to do that last year because
Yeah,
the weather was foul.
Let's just hope
last
for
year.
some better weather because we cursed it last year by showing up or
Yeah,
something.
right.
It did
Whoops.
rain pretty bad in the morning, but towards the end of the day, it
got
got
better.
better. It was a nice day.
But there's a little something for everyone there.
Yeah,
There's,
all different organizations doing all different kind of activities. We have this year a new. We used to do a trunk or treat, but now the bikers for help me out here abused.
Bikers Against Child Abuse. Is that the
Bikers
name of
Against
it?
Child Abuse are there to run that. We have the zombie Nerf wars. We have archery where they're shooting at.
I saw the Nerf Wars last time.
Didn't they also have what was it, paintball zombies in the tractor trailer? Or was that the Nerf?
Because I would walk around. We had our booth, their little table, and I would go walking around, seeing the hot sauces. And
Yeah, there was some
little
interesting
girl.
vintage.
There's some of those costumes those kids wore too. The
Yeah,
little girl
really
who was
good.
like the devil bat.
Yeah, and
Yeah, we have the costume
the
contest.
kids costume contest.
And this year, new, we have a dog costume contest.
Oh, awesome.
We have a kissing booth with the pugs, dogs, so that will raise money for that.
Oh, I'm smooching a pug. I don't care.
We have the Rochester Science and Museum Center bringing all their little critters and creatures. So lots of family-oriented activities, kids' activities.
And there's music, too. There's our friend Billy with the Dungarees, who they were there last year, and they're very good.
Yeah, he already told me he's coming back, I think.
Yeah. We run into him at his store, so we see him. It's like, it's Billy! You don't recognize without your makeup.
Yeah, I see him quite often.
And you might have some special guests there, too. I've heard there might be some unannounced.
Yeah, some
Not
things.
us from the podcast. Nobody cares about us.
No, absolutely not.
There will be some special guests.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. It's going to be scary.
And stay tuned to the internet.
Yes, you never know.
Keep you in suspense.
Yes.
You see? It's a thematic day today.
Even though we don't know about that costume contest because he was tabulating the score and he can't add, so someone...
Yeah, I don't know why they gave me that. It's like, hey, just tally up this total. They gave me a pen that barely worked and a piece of cardboard. Because that was all I had.
And that's some of your thoughts, too, because some of the parts we do, we've had, like, our pal Hammy was on there, and they do all the paranormal things, and there's some things, I think there's a contest to win something where you can go on a paranormal haunt.
Yes. There's...
They're not just going to come and do our show and be afraid, are they?
They will pick a couple of winners to come to when they do the investigation at the Hamlin Town Hall, which is, there's been some... things going on.
Is that the scary part in Hamlin, do you think? Is it because we all have our haunted places? Like for Buffalo, do you think of one that might be something there?
I got one. I got one for Buffalo.
Well, yeah, we ain't gonna mention that on air though.
No, the Central Terminal. That's what the Buffalo Central Terminal. I think that was the Was that where McKinley was shot? I know he was shot at the train station.
I know who he was by Siglitz, but I don't know where he was actually shot. He got a street named after him, though, so it's like shot in Buffalo, you get a street named after him.
Right.
It's like
worth it.
Maybe, because I'm sure there are.
All the time you've been out in Buffalo, what would you say is like the haunted place?
I'm not really familiar with the haunted locations or haunted house locations in Buffalo, but the Central Terminal you mentioned. I mean, I know that they have conventions there and different sorts of events.
Yeah, it's been on a lot of TV shows, a lot of movies.
Yeah,
it's like
we have you have the Bills. We might have Jack the Ripper buried in a cemetery here. So we got you there.
Yep, there's always that. There's always that one.
A lot of the small towns too. I'm sure through Hamlin, all the way up through Buffalo. I'm sure there's plenty of legends, especially in upstate New York.
There's the Rolling Hills Asylum in Bethany that.
Yes.
I've been there.
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah, we were there one night, and actually that's the thing I always bring up. They talk about the Linden murders, and the story goes, there were murders out to Linden, the town there, and there's a theory still they have some inmate somehow was getting out, doing it, coming back. They never solved it. But I was down there, and my friend freaked down in the morgue, laughed, she ran out. And it's interesting, too, because you're there for hours, but it goes by. But my friend got freaked. She said that. Felt the air change. She ran right out. So, but that's like the appeal. What is the appeal, really, of Halloween and all the scare? It's fun being scared, isn't it?
It is.
As long as you don't get, like, the results of it.
That's why it's such a big industry, the haunted house industry, because people love that thrill that they don't know what's coming and they get you.
I know. It's better than the Christmas present that you open and it's a tie. This at least is something.
No, yeah, and that's the thing. People still, and that's why horror movies still exist. And people love to be scared.
Do too.
Yeah.
It's dropping the veil, so to speak. Like you get to see, the things that, are normally kind of kept in shadow get to flourish for a while. Like, here's all your fears and all your, here it all is, just have fun with it.
And I've dabbled a little in like filmmaking with friends here, and the thing probably now is because of technology. A lot of people can get the stuff out, too, where it's a little different. Where before you had to be like Ed Wood or something, but now you could probably get something done and get it out. I mean, I've dealt with the whole thing with like budgets and getting distributing, and you can actually do it. It's sort of neat.
Well, like I was thinking, because you said pull back the veil. Do you think? This just occurred to me. with the amount of horror movies, or even just weird movies coming out, do you think it's maybe helping people to look at their own fears and kind of put it in a different light to see, like, hey, maybe it's not as bad as I think?
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I mean, one of the things that I've been thinking about horror is that it is a kind of way of facing certain things through entertainment.
Yeah.
Because like it's because a lot of times you hear people say, oh, I had to the studio forced me to change the ending of my movie because they wanted a happy ending. Like you hear that sometimes, but in horror, that's a genre where it's traditional to have a happy ending. I mean, have an unhappy ending, an ending where the person dies or meets a terrible fate. I was talking to one of my filmmaker friends, Paul McGinnis, who said that one of his scripts he had to change the ending in the opposite. He was making a horror comedy, which he saw as a werewolf movie, and in that genre, traditional for the villain to not for the main character to die, and basically because of it being such a lighthearted comedy, it just didn't feel right for the tone to stick with the tradition for the genre, so they went for the happy ending that way. So.
I think it goes all over. I think partly you turn on the news, you're miserable, you're depressed. It's some nice escapism, but also it can be an allegory for things. Like Wes Craven was really good with it, like The People Under the Stairs, where, I know what this is about. And it can go all the way around like that. And it's also, I suppose movies write themselves in a way, though, where at the end you go, that character lovely, but it's horror. Just drop a piano on him.
Well, don't you think that there is some sort of morality lesson in it? Because if you look at, like, the survival horror movies, who are the ones that survive?
Well, those are,
it's
the
good-hearted
what it
people.
goes to. All they are, really, like, you go back to the slasher films, they're the old campfire tales or urban legends, where the old fairy tales.
The hook on the door handle.
Yeah, that's what they really are. Because, we're at a camp, we're camping out. Oh, you hear what happened years ago here?
Long ago in a place not too dissimilar from
I
this
heard,
place that we're sitting right now. I heard
Did
from
you
a
know,
guy
like
who
in
heard
Hamlin,
from a guy.
I heard that, that lobster ate the person.
Yeah.
But there's also, part of it might be morality, but I think a lot of part of it is simply spectacle. People enjoy seeing special effects. People enjoy seeing a guy's arm get ripped off or whatever
and
it
it
is.
It reflects the age, because they always said we had, in the 50s, the atomic age, we had all the big monsters because people had the anxieties, and I think it takes our anxieties out. It's fun to be scared. It's like that rush. But we have to emphasize, like, especially Patty, so we don't have people keeping their kids away. This is very family-friendly.
Yes, very family.
There is no chainsaw juggling. Although I'd pay to see that.
No, that would be so. They don't have jugglers.
No.
No, I don't want to ever do that. But they're more creative than I am.
But when we were there last year, there was tons of families and a lot of kids running around having fun.
Painting pumpkins, too, don't they?
There was.
Painting
Did you
pumpkins,
see, now what are your
pony
feelings
rides.
on this? I mean, to each his own, but I saw the new thing now is having pineapple jack-lanterns.
What?
I
saw
haven't
it.
heard that.
Yes,
Oh.
I saw it. It's like they're having like little pineapple jack-lanterns now. But I know parts of Europe they still use turnips and everything, so.
Why on earth would they do that?
You're worse than us. You belong. We're not letting you leave.
Ladies and gentlemen, our new co-host.
Okay, we have to. When I was a kid, we tried to have a seance. Number one, we tried to contact the devil because we were kids. But we tried to call. So if you could have a seance in the Halloween spirit and you could call one person back to talk to him, who would it be? And I'll tell you mine then.
Oh, God.
Well, we're thinking ours, of all things, was Lou Costello.
See, at least he would be fun to talk to, unless he was being tormented in the eternal pit of hell.
Yeah, well, we didn't think of, like, personal life or anything at
Yeah.
the time. And we used to watch the one channel, PIX, used to have Abbott and Costello on every Sunday. So I thought, let's get Lou Costello. He never showed up.
Yeah.
So we went to Abbott's for a Sunday.
I'm going to have to go to bed after this one. Who would be interesting if it was possible, theoretically possible, to converse with somebody from the beyond? God, I don't know. It would probably have to be some big polarizing historical figure to get their side of the story.
No, because they're going to say I'm innocent. Mo Howard.
Yeah, you know what? Talk to Mo.
To take you up, what are you now? We know what you're doing at the thing, Pat. What are you going to be setting up there and talking to people at the thing, Curt, at the fest?
I'm as of right now, I'm primarily going to be just walking around with my camera, documenting.
Oh, there you go.
Because that's it's useful to have a record of what the events are, and then we can use that
for when the authorities find the footage. It'll be nice to know what happened.
It's amazing how they grow, though, isn't it? Like if you've been involved from the beginning, how you see this when it's here, and then it's all the way out here.
Yeah. Like it started in a one-room kind of building, and then eventually we wound up using 3 buildings and a field. And
for everybody who doesn't know, it's at Hamlin. You go down with the street. It's where the Hamlin Town Hall is, and there's plenty of parking, and it's
enormous.
It's on Route 19, just north of 18 and 19
For us,
intersection.
we always see that deer processing plant when we go by.
Yeah.
But you go down, and it's just, you go straight down Ridge Road, usually, and then just go see the road for Hamlin there.
Yeah, straight up north on 19, and right at the Hamlin Town Hall.
Yeah, and there's plenty of parking, and it's very
and it
fun.
encompassed a lot of the campus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it went back a ways. We were walking for a while and still hitting stuff.
Yeah, trying to get, come on, be on the show.
Hey, we got people.
We're trying to get someone to do some wagon rides just for that reason. So if somebody wanted to hitch a ride to the other end, they could.
Oh, that'd be
could
cool,
do
like
that.
a little wagon transport.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
Yeah. We're
Oh,
working on that one though.
That's neat. Never know with horses.
Just get a tractor.
Get a golf
more
cart.
reliable.
Tractor.
Get a golf cart,
golf
dress it up with hay or something.
Yeah,
Sometimes
exactly.
that's
Just
it.
goose
Or one
and
of
hay
those
with a golf
actually,
cart.
because I've been on some of those. Yeah, you get like a tractor and like a thing just pull people or whatever. Or you have people just take them around and carry them on their backs, you know.
But even if you got to walk, we have entertainment the whole way along. You know, trunk or treat and vendors there. So a lot going on in between.
Oh, cool. You'll have to stop by and document us with your
Yeah, I
camera.
was going to say, and that was another thing. It's not just that. There's a lot of local vendors, a lot of cool people. You know, we saw our buddy Relic the Clown was the MC, and he ran the children's costume contest, which, like you said, man, there was some pretty cool costumes for these kids.
And what I get
It was
with
a little
these,
different from
with
when I
these
was a
kids too is we're looking going great. There's a clown with a machete and everything. The adults are this guy's.
That's the
The
thing.
adults are clown.
The kids love the clowns. I don't know why. Sorry, Relic. Clowns are damn evil.
Especially him.
Well,
He's a little scary.
he
Looking.
did have it out for me a couple of times. Remember, he told me, he's like, "I'm gonna get you." No, you're not. But then I had my head on a swivel the entire time because I knew he was out there somewhere trying to do something to me.
And a lot of people come in costumes too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw some really interesting ones.
Well, that's the thing. And that's another thing, man. It's family friendly and it's time to have fun.
Yeah. And everything
And
we
be
do,
scared.
make sure we have the date and everything. It's October 5th.
Saturday, October 5th. Yes.
You're worse than me.
You know,
From the time it starts at, I'm not completely sure, is it 11 till 6 or something there?
I think it's 12 to 5.
12 to 5.
Yep.
I mean, you have a
12 to
site
5.
and everything for it because we're inept. So,
I'll link to it. I have that technology.
yeah, so we'll do that. But it's always a really good time.
And
It's
there's
good to see
food there. We have a couple of organizations cooking food, so at both ends. So if you're hungry at one end, get the food
And I
there.
think it's a bargain in any price too. What is it, $5? Is it cheap or
$5 will get you the activities that are going
those,
on.
okay.
Yeah,
Cool and everything. Parking's free too, which I'm a
parking's
big.
free.
That's huge.
I have a big pain about that. I like
Kurt,
park
what do you
down.
got? What do you got coming up? Any projects in the pipeline?
I actually just finished a short film, which was black and white, actually shot on film, called Night of Reflection. It's a little vampire movie. I took a 60mm class at Visual Studies Workshop for old time's sake because I shot on film as a student, and that was shown at the Buffalo Dreams Film Festival. So that was a fun experience making that little film. And that actually reminds me of another Rochester horror connection. Way back in the silent days, in 1928, there were two in the same year. There were two different film film adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe's Fall of the House of Usher. One of them was a French film. The other one was made right here in Rochester.
Really?
Yep.
Oh. See, I never knew that one.
Yep.
Did you ever have, like, in terms of the pantheon of the classical Universal monsters, did you have a favorite? Was it the vampire, or did you ever really think of those? Or
I don't know. I don't know if I wasn't. I don't know if I was as much into the horror monsters as a kid as I was into the, sci-fi characters. Another Rochester connection. Michael Del Rosa is an effects artist who has worked on several films, including, I think he worked on at least one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. He's a name with a Rochester connection, and I think some of the people that David Lynch has worked with, either his cinematographer, his composer, or both, I think they might have both gone to RIT.
Yeah, we were all like, I was really, because my grandmother was so into Star Trek, but I was just in the Star Wars phenomenon where literally I lived across the street from a drive-in and they had a double feature of Smokey and the Bandit and Star Wars. You could see the line of the cars. And back then, remember, you couldn't just go get, it's coming out on DVD. So we'd go back to the theater, like, see it 10 times. And I had my dress as Darth Vader with the old cheesy lightsaber made of plastic.
And that's
and
another,
Close Encounters,
and that's another thing for the people that remember the drive-ins. Who the hell put together these showings? Because I remember when I was a kid, I went to a drive-in, and the double showing was Footloose followed by Cujo.
And I had one, The Rescuers, which is like a Disney movie,
Yeah.
followed by The Sentinel, which is about the devil trying to get some nun to convert to Satan.
That's what I mean. Do they just...
Well, when the kids fall asleep,
Yeah, it's like when the
parents can
kids
watch
fall
the
asleep,
scary
it's
stuff.
like, Jesus Christ, who puts these combinations together? It makes no sense.
Probably the theater and whatever movies happen to be.
Yeah, I
out
guess
at the
whatever's
same
popular.
time.
But come on, Footloose followed by Cujo?
So
I mean, jeez. But I stayed up for Cujo. And that was...
doggone it, you weren't going to fall asleep.
And that hurt me a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think this is so much fun.
See,
The fest.
yeah. At the end of Footloose, you're like, oh, my dogs are tired, and that takes you right into the next movie, maybe. I don't
Ladies
know.
and gentlemen, this has been my last show ever.
You're worse than us. You should just come on. We
going
should
home.
keep you here. People yell at me.
Anything...
Are you gonna dress up at all for this?
Yeah,
we're
what's your
not going
costume?
to.
Come on.
I'm gonna wear a shirt with a pumpkin on it. I'm not dressing up.
I
on.
can't reveal.
Ooh.
So
I'll keep
so
you in suspense for that one,
if
too.
we could spot you, well, we will.
Well, I'm
Otherwise, just pretend you don't know us. I
Yeah,
suppose.
exactly. Well, a lot of people do. Anything else you want to throw in as we wrap it up?
Well, this is so big. We'll probably have to do a sequel
Yeah.
and special guests
And
fun
special guests, and look for it. And again, October 5th at the Hamlin,
Hamlin Town Hall.
Hamlin Town Hall in Hamlin, New York, noon to 5.
Maybe it'll be the Pied Piper. Even will be there.
I was a
Oh,
Pied
God,
Piper
that was
that time.
the Hamlin reference. I was like, what?
Any rats there? There are no rats in Hamlin anymore, right?
No,
I
he
do have a Pied Piper costume.
All I think of is the Flash villain, though.
No, he
more than that.
schlepped them all over to Hilton out there.
Remember, all those stories fit in, too, because they were in their original incarnation. They were pretty scary. They were like morality fables for, you don't misbehave, But it's been fun.
Yeah, that's been a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
Well, thanks
And
for having
we'll
us.
see you at the Scream Fest.
Maybe we'll see you if we can recognize
Well, that's
you.
the thing. We don't know.
I might
100%.
teach you a new trick at the unhaunted house.
And there's your hint for that one. Take it as you will. Look in the description for links. Get to the horror or to the Scream Fest. The weather. Hopefully,
I kept telling myself I'm going to call it the Horror Fest, but I kept.
But hopefully the weather will be better the whole day, because last year, and I do have to say though, last year the crowd was pretty good, even considering.
And also
the weather.
was later in the year, I think. Maybe a little
It's always
later.
the first Saturday.
Oh, it is?
Was it? It's,
I somehow in my head, I don't know why I had it. I don't know.
yeah, but keep your fingers crossed for good weather. Look for
Should
everybody.
be. I mean, it's outdoors.
Look for everybody. Go trunk or treating. Wear a costume. And for God's sake, go have fun.
And come
Have
by
some
us and
fun.
say, what are you guys doing here? Leave me alone.
Yeah, it's like-
feel free to come by our little booth, too, and, whatever else.
But until then, thank you guys.
Yep, thanks a lot.
Good luck on everything, and we'll see you in a
Couple
month.
weeks, actually, not
Couple
too
weeks.
far away.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot.